we move right now to the next speaker and the last of this third session. Carlos Sanchís has a background in material science and electrochemical. He joined EUGW25 in 2014, a startup company that aims at developing green technologies and sustainable materials, where he's currently the head of innovation. Since then, he took part in seven EU projects related to the production of high-end activated carbons and could bring improvement to a wide variability of industrial applications such as energy storage, hydrogen storage, and volatile organic compounds abatement, among others. His interests are focused on the development of singular nanoporous materials out of bio-waste, the understanding of the absorption mechanisms of key gases and anions, as well as the development of downscale solutions for the regeneration of spent absorbents. And Carlos Sanchís will present us the CARVOC Project.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction, Gloria. Okay, so yeah, I'm Carlos Sanchís from the company EUGW25. This is a small company, a startup located in Navarra. Our history goes all the way back to 10, 12 years ago. And that is exactly the time when we were taking part in this CARVOC project. This is not like the other two projects that were presented before, which are more recent. This is already 10 years since it concluded, but I think that some of the insights that we got there are still relevant. So I think it's good to come back to them and share with all of you. So this is a deep dive into the VOC abatement with tailor-made activated carbons. This is our business, let's say. We are a company mainly doing tailor-made activated carbons and another development of other green processes that I will also introduce a little bit later. And our goal entering this project was to be able to establish correlations between a wide list of VOCs of industrial relevance and the properties that we could induce in activated carbons, which are tailor-made, which are made out of local biomass, and that we can control really, really well. So to start with this, the actual title of the CARVOC project was Innovative Eco-Friendly Activated Carbon Filters for Harmful Vapors and Gases, VOC Purification. So we started by selecting the target VOCs for the study, and we have a representation of hydrocarbons, both saturated and aromatic, wide representation as well of oxygen groups, ketone, alcohols, aldehydes, carboxylic acids, and esters. Also some heteroatoms. So we have halogenated compounds, or at least one halogenated compound, one mercaptan, and also a tertiary amine in the mix. And typical molecular weights were between 60 and 100 grams per mole. So you can also see here the representation of the molecules at more or less the same scale. So you can see that they are all similar in size, but different in their polarity, in their sometimes they have acid groups in some cases. So yeah, that was like the core goal of this project. So the next step for us was to create the catalog of activated carbons that we wanted to test. So initially there was a catalog with around 60 different entries, like 60 different samples. We picked up 4 of them, and all of them were produced by chemical activation. So just as a side note, activated carbons, of course, you probably know or are familiar with that material, but what you might not know is that, let's say, 99.9% of activated carbons that are typically used in the industry are produced not chemically. They are called physical activation. They are produced in Asia, typically out of coal or out of coconut shells. And though this is like not really very flexible in terms of properties. It is like the standard 1,000 square meters per gram activated carbon, typically hydrophobic. So you cannot really induce like a lot of properties within that material. And the 0.1%, which is actually chemically activated carbon, is just for one application worldwide. The only one that wants to pay the, let's say, the additional cost of going for a chemically activated carbon is in the automotive sector, is for the control of evaporative losses of gasoline in the tank of the vehicle. And the reason that they go for this more advanced version of the carbon is because they have constraint in terms of the volume that the carbon can occupy in the vehicle. So if you tailor-made the carbon for that application, you are going to gain absorption capacity. And also in this particular application, they want to gain recovery of the fuel that was absorbed. So yeah, so we use like the same type of activation that the industry uses for producing those more advanced carbons. And we end up selecting those 4. You can kind of see here like a footprint or let's say fingerprint of each type of activated carbon that went into the study. So essentially on the left-hand side, what you can see is the micropore contribution to the pore volume and the mesopore contribution to the pore volume. Mesopores are essentially those pores which are larger than 2 nanometers, micropores below 2 nanometers. So we can induce mesoporosity. That is one thing. You cannot find mesoporosity in typical activated carbon. That is not generated in the other activation process, in the mainstream one. And we can also induce some surface chemistry, like oxygen groups attached to the surface. And in one particular case, we generated one which is not very mesoporous, but it has a lot of polar groups on the surface, also with a wide contribution, the green part here, of acidic groups. Then one which is more rather mesoporous version, but with medium oxygen content, and 2 additional ones which have the lower oxygen content, but they have considerably high mesoporosity. Okay, just to comment very briefly on the technical aspects of the study, we wanted to understand or to check both the kinetics and the equilibrium absorption that we could get. So we defined the kinetic model that we were going to use. This is pseudo-second order. And also we were using a type of isotherm or model of absorption, which is Langmuir-Freundlich. This is, let's say, one of the more flexible because it is compatible with the formation of multi-layers of absorbed VOCs in this case, and also with having heterogeneous surfaces, which is most likely the case. This is like the typical setup that was used. So the liquid VOC was injected into a flask, which was previously filled with compressed air. The activated carbon was suspended in a basket. The mass uptake in the basket was recorded as a function of time. And after constant mass was achieved, the gas inside the vessel was sampled to check the concentration of the VOC after equilibrium. So we jump now into the results of the project. So first of all, we were assessing, like I mentioned, the kinetics. So let's say that the results where we found an increase of at least 20% in the kinetic constant is considered a relevant induced property that we are inducing by modifying the, probably mostly because of the surface chemistry that we are inducing in the carbon. So we found a number of results. I want to point out that this is like the threshold that we use, beyond 20% increase, but in some cases we duplicate or even triple the amount of, or the value of the constant. So we can really accelerate or speed up the absorption. So we found a number of results. In this region, you can see those that were actually accelerated. In this one, in this other group, the ones that were decelerated, let's say, like had bad kinetics. So some of the results are easy to explain. For example, polar substances like alcohols attaching quickly to very functionalized carbons, or the same one having bad kinetics at a surface which is not really very hydrophilic, because we are not inducing a lot of oxygen groups. But then we have things which are not so easy to explain, like, for example, hydrocarbons having high kinetics on very polar surfaces. So probably this is informing us that the characterization of the carbon is not complete to extract conclusions for certain molecules. But well, just in some cases, I think that it is well informative, and one of them is, for example, this case, the carbon that has some mesoporosity, but not a lot, not a polar surface, and it kind of blocks the bulky molecules, the ones that have heteroatoms with larger atom number. So it has bad kinetics to things which, let's say, would like to absorb better in a mesopore because it's easier to access, and go a little bit worse in a micropore. Now, there are also some molecules, typically those which are more non-polar, let's say, which show little preference or variation or deviation in the kinetics. Now, taking a look at the absorption capacity, like which is the equilibrium amount that we can absorb in the carbon. Here, what we see is that, except for the more polar molecule, which is the alcohol, where we have high absorption capacity in micromoles per square meter, in the more polar or hydrophilic surfaces, in the rest of the cases, it is this one, the low mesoporosity, low oxygen group content carbon, which is the best one for most cases. It has like top performance in most of the cases. And this is not so surprising. Apparently, we are using molecules that pack together very well inside micropores. So that is probably the origin of this result, because as you can see, this one is the one that has like more micropore contribution. And we completed the study for the rest of the molecules, but just comparing the two activated carbons that have like little oxygen contribution, because we don't want to really have a contribution of the oxygen groups. We wanted to focus more on if there was some kind of molecule which favored actually mesoporosity in terms of the absorption, like the wider pores were more efficient for some reason, and that just was not the case. So in all cases, the higher the micropore contribution, the larger the value that we could obtain. There were, of course, also some remarkable absorption capacities beyond 2 micromole per square meter, which indicate that this carbon is very well suited for some of the molecules that we were testing. So we can go now to the main takeaways of the project in terms of the influence of the tailor-made activated carbons. So first of all, chemical activation as a pathway towards engineered activated carbons seems a good idea. It works. The mesopore to micropore ratio, the hydrophobicity, and the pH of the activated carbon surface can indeed influence both the kinetic and the capacity of absorption of almost every single VOC that we tested. But it is also the case that for molecules ranging up to 100 grams per mole in molecular weight, we see that the mesoporosity is not advantageous. So in fact, it decreases like the absorption capacity per square meter. In relation to the kinetics, we observe that all of the variables, the mesoporosity, the hydrophilicity, and acidity, all of them can create acceleration of certain of the absorption of certain VOCs. And the lack of explanation of certain affinities that we found in the study showed that probably we need a deeper understanding and a more, let's say, an advanced physicochemical characterization of the activated carbons to understand what is going on. So I wanted to just present you another project that came after CARVOC. It's not like 100% related, but I think it's also relevant. It is only one slide, my last slide. So a couple of years after the end of the CARVOC project, we started working on the portable crack project. This is Horizon 2020 project that is also completed by now. And here what we were developing is a solution for the regeneration of the spent activated carbon. Mostly considering water treatment, but also open to gas treatment. And the main goal, of course, here is not the recovery of the VOC, but the recovery of the activated carbon when it is like no longer in service or no longer active. So we found out that there is a problem in the field, especially in the water treatment field, but it is even worse, I would say, in the gas treatment field, because the technology is not cost competitive for small amounts of activated carbon. And we put here a tentative threshold. Under 20 tons, we observed in a survey that many water treatment plants were not accessing a competitive price for the regeneration of activated carbon, because this involves bringing the activated carbon to a thermal regeneration plant, which is typically not in Spain. You have it has to be delivered overseas or to another country, and this involves a big impact in terms of spent activated carbon that cannot be regenerated, and also in the equivalent greenhouse emission due to not reusing the activated carbon. So our solution is a modular solution that is most cost competitive than thermal regeneration or that the replacement of the spent activated carbon. And it is based on electrochemical regeneration. So this is a modular plant that goes to the site where the activated carbon or the spent activated carbon is produced, and it performs a treatment that allows to recover the indicators like the iodine index or the BET surface area of the activated carbon. Not all the activated carbons, but many of them can be regenerated. And we are still working on this and on the development of this idea. And in fact, in Horizon Europe, we have spotted already a good topic for us, and which is about replacing heat-driven processes with electrically driven processes. And we think that probably we can check there also the regeneration of gas treatment activated carbons. So that is all from my side. Thank you very much for your attention. And you can find here also my contact email in case you want to learn more or start a collaboration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carlos.
with the support of the European Union's LIFE program.